Good morning, 8th grade. Today we're going to be looking at Unit 1, Lesson 2. Let's take a look at the learning target together. I can translate real-world situations into algebraic sentences and solve them using inverse operations and simplification. The do now says to solve equations using inverse operations. I'm going to pause the video and have you take a look at the questions on your own, and then we will go over them together. Okay, let's take a look at the first question. So the first thing I see is that we have the distributive property here. So we are going to use the distributive property to multiply 4 times x and 4 times -2. I'm going to bring down the rest of my equation. And now I'm going to take a look and move. We want to isolate the variable, so I'm going to move the 4x by using inverse operations on both sides. This is going to cancel out, leaving us 2x plus 4 equals -8. We want to get this 2x by itself. In order to do that, we're going to use inverse operations again and subtract 4 from both sides, leaving us with 2x equals -12. The 2 and the x are being multiplied, so therefore I need to divide both sides by 2. I'm left with x equals -6. You can plug that back into your original equation here in order to check your work. Now let's take a look at the second question. So here we see the distributive property again. So I'm going to multiply 3/4 times 8/1. I can cross simplify. That's going to give me 3 times 2, which is 6. Bring down your variable. I'm also going to distribute 3/4 to the -4. That's going to give me okay, so I'm just going to bring down here. I have 3/4 over -4/1. Again, I can cross simplify, so I'm just going to bring this down. I have 6r minus 3 equals 15. Now I want to isolate the variable, so instead of subtracting 3, I'm going to use inverse operations to add 3 to both sides. This is going to cancel out, leaving 6r equals 15. Instead of multiplying the r by 6, I'm going to divide both sides by 6 in order to get the variable by itself. This is going to leave me with r equals 3. Therefore, your answer should be C. And if you do get stuck, remember you can use substitution to go back. You can plug that in and check your answer. Okay, let's take a look at the next question. It says triangles ABC is copy and pasted to create triangle DFG as shown below. In these triangles, side AB is congruent or same to side AB is congruent to side DF, and you can see that we put those in the same color for you. And if you take a look right here at the triangles, okay, they're also showing you that these are congruent. Side BC is congruent to FG, and you can see that those are also in purple to show you that those are going to be the same. The question says determine the values of x and y. So here I'm going to set up my equation, 2y plus 12, and I'm taking this right from the diagram of the triangles, is 2 times 2y in parentheses minus 3. So now again, you'll see the distributive property. I'm going to distribute 2 times 2y and 2 times -3. I'll put my work down here, and here I'm bringing this down. Okay, and my next step is we're going to always try and isolate the variable. So I'm going to want to move my smaller variable first, which is 2y. What we do to one side, we do to the other. This is going to cancel out. I'm left with 12 equals 2y minus 6. Okay, and if I look to the right of the equal sign, I see 2y minus 6. We want to get that variable by itself. So therefore, I'm going to use inverse operations to add 6 to both sides. This will cancel out, and I'm going to be left with 18 equals 2y. Just going to slide this up right here because we're running out of room. And we have 18 equals 2 times y. So we're going to divide both sides by 2 in order to isolate that variable. And we are left with y equals 9. So now I'm going to give you a few minutes to take a look at the second part of the question, which says that triangle BC is congruent to side FG. So now you're going to be looking at the lines that are purple, setting up your equation just like we did together. I'll pause the video. You're going to make an attempt on your own, and then we will go over it. Okay, now that you've had a chance to make an attempt at the second question, we'll go over it together. I did leave the work to the first one on the side in blue for your reference, but if we look together, we're going to set up our equation here, and we have 3 in parentheses 2x plus 10 equals 12x plus 12. Okay, using the distributive property, we have 6x plus 30 equals 12x plus 12. Again, our goal is always to isolate the variable, so we want to move the smaller variable first, which is 6x. It is assumed that there is positive here in front of the 6, so we're going to subtract 6 from both sides in order to make that cancel, and we're left with 30 equals 6x plus 12. Oops. Okay, we're going to subtract 12 from both sides, and we're going to be left with 18 equals 6x. Instead of multiplying by 6, we're going to divide both sides by 6, and we're going to be left with x equals 3. Always remember that you can plug this back into your original equation in order to check your work. Okay, let's take a look at the next slide together. It says to translate the following mathematical sentences into equations. For part B, you're going to solve each equation for the missing variable. Number 1 says 8 less than twice a number is 42. If we take a look at this, we know that we have 8 less than. Okay, this tells me that it's going to be 8 less than twice a number. We can represent twice a number by doing 2 as our coefficient next to our variable. You can choose any variable. It did not tell you which variable to choose or what letter. And it says is 42, which tells me that's going to be our equal sign. So we have twice a number. Notice that less than tells me it's going to come second, is 42. I'm going to pause the video, give you a second to do numbers 2 and 3, and then we can look at them together. Okay, looking at number 2, we have 7 subtracted from, here's that twice a number again. So if we look back to our number 1, we know that we can represent this using 2 as our coefficient, and we can again choose x as our variable, is 30, and we have 7 being subtracted from. So then I know that I'm going to have twice a number. I am taking 7 away from this 2x, and I'm left with 30. Looking at number 3, if 4 is being subtracted from, whoops, let's fix that. If 4 is being subtracted, okay, if 4 is being subtracted from twice a number, if 4 is being subtracted from twice a number, the result, and we know that this represents equals, is 16 more than the number. So in order to set that up, we have twice a number minus 4, okay, and that's the result. Okay, I'm just going to fix this quickly. We want to make sure that we're using the same variable. My mistake. This should also be an X because it says 4 is being subtracted from twice a number. The result, that's your equal sign, is 16 more than the number. X is your number that we're trying to find. Okay, part B said solve each equation for the missing variable. So if we go back, we use our equations to find the value of the variable. For number 1, you should have x equals 25. For number 2, you should have, and it does come out to be a decimal, but it's going to be x equals 18 and a half. And for number 3, you're going to be left with x equals 20. Okay, and you can go back and you will always plug those in and you can check your answer. Okay, now we're going to take a look at some word problems. It says, suppose you adopt a puppy from an animal shelter and buy 3 bags of dog food. The adoption fee is $125 and you spend a total of $154.97. Create an equation based on the information provided. If needed, use the table. So here you'll see you have a little graphic organizer that you can use. Plug in from the word problem in order to help you set up your equation. I would like you to pause the video now, make an attempt on your own, and then we will go over it together. Okay, if I were to use my graphic organizer, I look back to the problem and it says that the total that we're going to be spending is 100. So I'm going to fill that in, $154.97. They told us in the problem that we have adoption fees of $125, and they also told us that we're buying 3 bags of dog food. We do not know how much the bags of dog food cost, so we're going to put 3 times. We're using the variable x to represent the unknown amount of how much each bag of dog food costs. So now we're going to set up our equation, and we have 3x. This represents our bags of dog food, plus the 125. That is our adoption fee. That's constant. And they told us that our total is $154.97. Thinking back to the work that you've done previously with inverse operations, in the other problems, we're going to use subtraction in order to help us isolate that variable. This will cancel, and we are left with 3x equals $29.97. Instead of multiplying by 3, we are going to divide both sides by 3. That's going to leave us with x equals 9.99. Now that 9.99 is going to represent the cost of each bag of dog food. So how much does each bag of dog food cost? That was what our variable represented. So therefore it's going to be $9.99. Find the cost of 10 bags. So now that we know that 1 bag costs $9.99, we can use that information to help us find the cost of any amount of bags. This problem specifically is asking for 10 bags. So we're going to do 10 bags times $9.99, which is the cost of 1 bag, and we're going to get our total. Okay, let's take a look at another word problem. The cost for a certain music plan is $9.99 annually. Okay, notice that this says annually. That means that's a fee that you're going to be paying yearly, once a year, plus 25 cents per song. Okay, excuse me, that was plus 25 cents per song that you downloaded. Notice that this means per song, so every song you're downloading is going to be costing you a quarter. If you paid $113.74 one year, find the number of songs that you downloaded. You can reference that graphic organizer on the previous slide in order to help you set up your equation. I'm going to pause the video, give you a second, use the information in the word problem, think about what's constant, think about what's attached to your variable, and your total. Okay, so if we look at this together, we know that that $9.99, that's an annual fee. That's something that we're going to be paying yearly. Plus 25 cents per song. I'm going to use S for song, but you can use any variable that you like. And we know that the total that we paid is $113.74. In order to find out the amount of songs that you downloaded, we're going to need to get that variable by itself. In order to do so, again, we're using inverse operations. I am subtracting $9.99 from both sides of the problem. I bring this down. I have $103.75. I want to get that S by itself. So therefore, instead of multiplying by 25.25, I am going to divide. Therefore, I'm going to be left with, bring it over here, S equals 415. Think about what that represents. That 415 is going to represent the number of songs that you downloaded. You do have a fast finisher and a challenge question at the bottom. This challenge question does have various answers because you are coming up with an equation on your own. If there's one that you would like us to check, you can send it over and I can take a look at it individually. Otherwise, I'll give you the answer for the fast finisher. You can pause it for a second and make an attempt. Okay, for the fast finisher, I did put the work up in order for you to check your answer. And again, you can always plug that back into the equation to check your work. Okay, let's take a look at the next question. This is a real world application of equations. A personal trainer buys a weight bench for $500 and weights. Now notice they're telling you use W to represent the weights for $24.99 each. The total cost of the purchase is $849.86. You're going to write an equation that you can use to find the total number of weights that were purchased. Looking at the problem, we see that they told us the weight bench was 500. They also told us the total cost was $849.86. The weights are $24.99 each, but we don't know how many weights we purchased. That is what you are trying to find by setting up your equation. I'll have you pause the video now, make an attempt. Okay, so you should have had your video paused, making an attempt at the question, and then you are going to resume the video only to check your work. So now I'm going to go through the question with you. We said that it was $500 for the weight bench plus the $24.99. And remember, they told us to use W for the weights. And they said that your total was $849.86. We're going to subtract 500 from both sides. Okay, bring down the 24.99, bring down your variable. Okay, that was $349.86. Sorry, we're running out of room. We have $24.99. Instead of multiplying, we are dividing. So we're going to do that to both sides. Bring down your variable, and you're going to be left with W equals 14. So looking at part B, how many weights were purchased? 14 weights. For the fast finisher, it says an electronics store pays their employees $8 per hour and an additional $20 for each TV they sell. If an employee sells 6 TVs and makes a total of $168, how many hours did he work? Okay, so you should have made an attempt at that fast finisher. I will put the work up here in order for you to check it. So just like we've been doing throughout the lesson, we're using inverse operations. Our goal is to get the variable by itself. Okay, and we're left with h equals, whoops, not 48, 6. I was going to say that doesn't look right. So h equals 6. Okay, as we move through the lesson, notice this is an extra spicy problem. So this one should be a little bit challenging. It says Miranda bought 2 large postcards and 4 small postcards at a souvenir shop. Each small postcard costs 50 cents. If Miranda spent a total of $5 on postcards, how much was the cost of one large postcard? So notice that they're telling you small postcards are 50 cents. She spent a total of $5. We're looking to find out the cost of a large postcards. This is where you're going to pause your video. You're going to write your equation, solve it, and then take a look at part C where it says, is the answer you arrived at reasonable? So you always want to ask yourself, does my answer make sense? If small postcards are 50 cents, even before we get started, how much do you think a large postcard should cost? So pause your video now, make an attempt at the problem. Okay, so for your equation, we know that she purchased 2, and I'm going to make L for large postcards, plus 4 small postcards. Those were 50 cents each, and the total was $5. Okay, so using your equation, first let's find out how much those small postcards cost. They were a total of $2. Let's bring everything else down. Okay, and now, whoops, sorry, that's a plus. Okay, now we're going to subtract 2 from both sides. We're left with 2L equals $3. We're going to divide both sides by 2. And we're left with L equals $1.50. So that tells us that the large postcards are $1.50. Looking at part C, is the answer we arrived at reasonable? So ask yourself, if small postcards are 50 cents, would it make sense that large postcards are $1.50? Seems reasonable. Notice that you can go back in and check your work. So if you purchased 2 large postcards, they were $1.50 each, plus 4 small postcards. They were 50 cents each. Will we arrive at $5 total? If you go through your work, your answer is going to be yes. Okay, so now we're going to look at a multiple choice question. Gary wants to rent a car for 1 day. He contacted 2 companies. Avis Car Rental charges $30 plus $4 per mile. Enterprise Car Rental charges $5 per mile. After how many miles will the total cost for both companies be the same? You're going to pause your video, make an attempt at the question, and notice that it is multiple choice. You can use those multiple choice answers to help you if you're stuck by using what is reasonable, and then we'll go over it together. Okay, so we know that we're going to be comparing Avis to Enterprise. So for the Avis car rental company, they told me that it was going to be $30 plus $4 per mile. We're going to be comparing the two. So here's my equal sign. And they told me that Enterprise was $5 per mile. So now I am going to move the variable first. Okay, and therefore our answer is going to be C. Now you can check this by using that, plugging it back into your equation. So after how many miles will the total cost for both companies be the same? Your answer is going to be $30. miles. Okay, so now that you've made an attempt at this question on your own, let's take a look at it together. So Verizon Fios charges a $50 flat fee plus $1.50 per movie. Time Warner is charging a $39 flat fee plus $2.50 per movie. We're going to create an equation that we can use to compare the two plans. So we're trying to find out at what amount of movies are we going to be paying the same amount. So your equation, okay, and this is for Verizon, is going to be that $50 flat fee plus $1.50 per movie. For Time Warner, you're paying the $39 flat fee plus $2.50 a movie. So initially, just looking at this, we can see that Verizon does have that higher initial fee of $50 in comparison to Time Warner, which is $39. But for Verizon, their price per movie is $1 less than Time Warner. So now we need to figure out at what point would the cost be the same. Okay, so you're going to be comparing your work by checking it against the work that I am putting up. One M, sorry. Okay, we're going to subtract 39 from both sides. And you're going to be left with 11M. So therefore, at 11 movies, the price for both companies is going to be the same. Now, if I look at the question, it says to use the equation that we created to find how many movies you need to purchase to make Verizon a better deal. So pause your video, think about that, and think what you can do in order to compare using your equation. Okay, so if you take a look here, I just created a little chart for us. So for Verizon and Time Warner, at 11 movies, I'm paying $66.50 with Verizon, and I'm also paying $66.50 with Time Warner at 11 movies. We know that because we used our equation in order to get them equal. So then I plugged into my equation 12 movies, and let's take a look at what happened. Verizon became $68 and Time Warner became $69, telling us that at 12 movies, Verizon is going to be the better deal. Okay, let's look at the next question. A crane is lowering a concrete block from a height of 270 feet above the ground at a constant rate of 2.5 feet per second. Which function can be used to determine h, the height in feet above the ground of the concrete block after s seconds? Pause your video and notice this is a multiple choice question. You should be able to eliminate an answer choice before you even get started using the information that they gave you in the problem. Pause your video now to make an attempt at the question. Okay, so if we look at this together, before we even get started, I noticed in the problem that they said that it was at a constant rate of 2.5 feet per second. So I'm going to use that information and look at my answer choices. If it's 2.5 feet per second, I know that that S is going to have to be attached to the 2.5. Therefore, I can automatically eliminate answer choice A. So then I see that we are starting at 270 above, look at the vocabulary, above the ground, and it says that the crane is lowering. That tells me that it's going to be subtraction. So using that information, your answer for this question should be C. Okay, you're starting at 270 above, so it's assumed that that's a positive. Okay, and you are lowering, that tells me that I'm using subtraction at 2.5 feet per second. We're trying to find the height. Okay, you've finally reached the end of the lesson. We're taking a look at the exit slip. It says Jenny wants to rent a truck for 1 day. She contacted two companies, Laguna's Truck Rentals, they charge $20 plus $2 per mile, and Salvatore's Truck Rentals, they're charging $3 per mile. After how many miles will the total cost for both companies be the same? You're pausing your video, you're making an attempt at the question, and then I will give you the answer. Okay, you should have the answer choice C. Okay, for the last and final question of the exit slip, you should have choice C, 20. So after how many miles will the total cost for both companies be the same? The answer is C, 20 miles. So after this lesson, go back and look at any questions that you felt were challenging or extra spicy. And during our lives, you can ask us about that question. You can reach us through the Google Classroom on the chat, and we can go over those questions with you individually if you feel like you're still having difficulty.